With just over a week until the Game Week 1 deadline, there is a template team that is starting to lock in particular, a few players. And in today's video, I'm going to be looking to break that template, select some players that I think are rightly so as good as some of these template picks. So as always, if you look forward to it, make sure to drop a like in for 200. And if you haven't already, make sure you do subscribe to the channel for daily fantasy content. Enough waffling, let's get to today's video. So here we have what I believe is roughly the template team going into Game Week 1. Now, of course, we do have a £100 million budget. So there are players that are highly owned that are not in this team. But of course, I can't fit him in with a £100 million at my disposal. So we've roughly built what the highly owned players are looking like going into Game Week 1. And I want to identify the players that I think are rightly so going to be part of this template team. The ones that we could question whether they are justifiable, and the ones that I actually think are just a complete avoid. So working our way from top to bottom here, we got Kelleher and we got Dubravka. Now, Dubravka looks like he will be getting a move to Burnley to replace Trafford. And if that's the case, then I think he is the standout 4 million goalkeeper. In terms of the 4.5 million goalie, you can see with this template team, we do have 5 million in the bank. So that can be improved to someone like a Robert Sanchez. But I want to show you later on in the video what you can do with changing the structure of this team in certain positions. 4.5 million for Kelleher has made him the standout pick. He's over 30% owned in the game. The next most owned is around 17%. So he is by far and away. We've discussed in the previous videos how I don't love all of the goalkeepers in the game. But if you're going to go 4.5, I do get it with Kelleher because there's a nice balance of fixtures and also the save point potential. And I do rate him as a goalkeeper in general. There's no risk of them signing someone late on in the deadline transfer that they could replace him with. So we'll talk about goalkeepers in a minute. In terms of the defenders, we've got Wan-Bissaka, Frimpong, the most expensive at 6 million, Konsa, Van der Ven, and Owened. Now, first up, I've mentioned Frimpong so many times. I believe this player is an avoid, and I will have an alternative for you. I just think with Connor Bradley, yes, there's a slight fitness concern going into Game Week 1, but long term, I think there is problems with Frimpong as a choice. Wan-Bissaka, once again, the most highly owned defender in the game. But I do believe there is an alternative to him at a much less owned position. Konsa, again, Aston Villa's defence. People want a piece of it. Don't know whether it is justifiable or not, but Konsa is a great entry point into that team. And Van der Ven picking up a lot of traction alongside Owened. In terms of midfield, Salah, Palmer for me are locked in. I really do believe that they are standout picks this season at those price points. Florian Wirtz at 8.5 again. Bit of a debate to be had whether you go for Florian Wirtz or Bruno Fernandes in your teams. But I do think Florian Wirtz, with what we've seen at Leverkusen, is a bargain at 8.5. But with those opening fixtures that they have, Bournemouth, Newcastle and Arsenal, it does beg the question, could we actually maybe look to go without him in these opening weeks? Kudus a standout 6.5 from an ownership perspective, but again, I'm going to give you an alternative that I believe is better than him. And then we have got Ramsey as the standout 4.5 million midfielder. But again, I don't believe there is any value in these 4.5 million midfielders. And with potentially DEFCON, defensive contributions, being the standout feature this year, is it important to really keep those money in the defence rather than in this 4.5 million midfield spot? Last up, the front three. Beto at 5.5, João Pedro at 7.5, and Gyökeres at 9 million. And I have problems with all three of these picks, so they most likely will be getting changed in the next section. But that's a bit of an update on what the template team is looking like. Let's take a look at some players who are at the exact same price that I believe are better picks while not changing the team structure that we have right now. Okay, so I've made 4 changes first and foremost to the template team, and these, as I mentioned, are just going to be the same price, sideways move to players that I believe are better for your Game Week 1 teams, or at least offer a bit more opportunity. So first up is going to be Juve there. Now, one of those players that's come into West Ham this season and has been very impressive during pre-season. Now, yes, the minutes have been a little bit limited, but in the most recent game, we saw him play as a left wing back, got an assist and also created a lot of big chances from that left-hand side with balls into the box. but also has the potential to play as a left winger in a 4-3-3 formation, for example. So a very versatile player that Potter has brought in, but somebody that is mainly going to operate on that left-hand side. Now, again, we don't know exactly what Graham Potter is going to do. We do have one more game for West Ham during pre-season where eyes are certainly going to be on Diouf, because his ownership right now is 2%. Wan-Bissaka's is 35%. And a player like Diouf, who is effectively doing the same job, Wan-Bissaka a right wing back, Diouf a left wing back, I do think going into game week 1, am I scared of not owning Wan-Bissaka? 100% not. Yes, he got 6 assists last season, 2 goals. We might see an evolved version of Wan-Bissaka. But if I've got the opportunity to go for a player who is doing the exact same thing in the West Ham team on the other side of the pitch, I think everybody's rolling the dice. And one time Diouf will outscore Wan-Bissaka, the next time Wan-Bissaka will outscore Diouf. When we have so many highly owned players in the game, like Salah, like Palmer, like João Pedro, I think when we can find these little opportunities to go slightly different, you should really take them. And that's why I think Diouf is actually a better alternative to that of Wan-Bissaka. Yes, I get the argument, though. Wan-Bissaka probably is safer from a minutes perspective. Next up, I've gone on about this for ages. If you're going to go Frimpong, you are taking a slight risk. I believe Van Dijk is the standout option. Now, I get it. Frimpong, the new player into the league, exciting of what we saw at Bayer Leverkusen as a wing back. I think with Virgil van Dijk, if it was last season, I would tell you to go Frimpong. But with the introduction of defensive contributions and the stats that we have seen on Van Dijk, knowing that he will do really good on average with the clearances, interceptions, tackles, I believe he is the standout pick at this 6 million range right now. And I do think he's a much safer pick than that of Frimpong, not only for game week 1, but for those opening game weeks in particular. I don't think we have any risk, of course, of rotation. In terms of the 6.5 midfielder, now controversially, I've taken out Kudus and I've brought in Ilian Ndiaye. So firstly with Spurs, we're going to get a lot of clarification before the deadline because, of course, they play in the Super Cup against PSG on the Wednesday night. One hand, that's great. We're going to see where Kudus fits in because now the injury to Maddison looks really bad. We don't know whether that's now going to force Kudus into a central role or keep playing off the right-hand side. Regardless, we'll gain information. The problem is, anything can happen in that PSG game to negatively impact game week 1. Whereas when I look at Ndiaye, we got guaranteed minutes, on penalties and great fixtures. I think I'd rather go for Ndiaye to open the season than that of Kudus, where I don't know exactly where he's operating in that team and how Spurs are actually going to look for game week 1 with Maddison out injured and Dominic Solanke a big doubt. Finally, if you watch my videos regularly, you will know I am not on the Gyökeres train right now, or at least in the opening 6 game weeks. We've compared the fixtures before and it is no brainer. Watkins and Aston Villa have a much better start than that of Gyökeres. And Gyökeres has direct competition with Kai Havertz. Some people believe Gyökeres is coming in and playing 90 minutes each and every game. If you believe that, then yes, I get it. Go for Gyökeres. But I just don't see Kai Havertz being pushed aside. I believe that Arsenal have been needing much more a left winger than that of a centre forward. I don't think Gyökeres is going to change too much for Arsenal. And with Watkins already scoring 3 goals in pre-season, yes, there are a few transfer rumours, but I personally don't think they're going to come to fruition. And I think Ollie Watkins is a much better placeholder for you at 9 million with these great fixtures that then can allow you, if you want to pivot to other players or cheaper later down the line. So 4 changes to the template team, all the same price, but I believe they are 4 better picks than that of the originals. Next up, the first structural change of this template team. We still got 0.5 million in the bank, don't worry. And we decided to change the midfield and forward price points. So we originally had the combination of Ramsey at 4.5 in midfield and Beto at 5.5 as a forward. So we flipped it. We've now brought in Elliot Anderson, the 5.5 million midfielder, and we've brought in Marc Guéhi, the 4.5 million forward, who of course has got a loan move now from Chelsea to Sunderland. Now I want to put a caveat out there. I don't think Marc Guéhi is going to be starting game week 1. I'll be really surprised if it. Sunderland do have alternatives. So very much if you do make this structural change, you are bringing in Marc Guéhi as a bench fodder pick with the potential of him becoming a starter at Sunderland. Do not be bringing him in thinking that you are going to start him each and every game week. You are basically doing this shift to bring in Anderson, who I believe is a better price point than that of Beto. Now I get it. Beto had a great season last year. We are anticipating him to be the game week 1 starter for Everton away against Leeds. So that is a great fixture to start the season off with Beto. However, we have, of course, got the new signing in Barry. We've seen David Moyes at times suggest that Beto hasn't really been hitting the ground during pre-season. And I do wonder that Beto very quickly could become a 60-minute man in your teams, if not maybe a sub coming on for the last 30 if Barry is actually a good option. Again, I can't sit here and say to you that Barry is a great pick. I don't really know too much about him. So with this slight change, I just think it really strengthens the team because, yes, you are then pushing towards more of a front two. But if you went for the other option, you were going for your 4 midfielders. Like, you weren't able to play, of course, Ramsey in any fixture. And I'd much rather have this structure with the potential of Mark Gui emerging as an incredible option at 4.5. And what I love about Elliot Anderson is that it gives you great fixtures, also gives you defensive contributions. He was averaging around 12 defensive contributions per 90, which is the threshold that midfielders need to hit, different to that of defenders who need to hit 10. So Elliot Anderson is a great option, gets you into the Nottingham Forest fixtures, and importantly, as we know, is a young player. We might actually see him develop once again, and a lot of fans think it could be a breakout season for him, if not last season, what we saw. So I think that slight tweak in the team is a better structural shift than that to what we saw before. So the final few tweaks of that original template team, and we've made 3 changes and we spent the £100 million budget finally here. So we've made a few changes. First and foremost, I've got rid of Concert and I've downgraded to Esteve. Now, Steve, however you want to call him. So it looks like he's going to be a starter for Burnley. Yes, the ownership is a little bit higher, so I get it. This probably will emerge as a bit of a template pick, but defenders this season are really, really good. And I do think you can absolutely have a structure of having 6 million, 6 million, 5.55, 4.5. But I do believe if you have a structure like this of 6, 5.5, 2 4.5s and a 4, I think that's enough. And I think that will be where a lot of managers will land, ironically, probably will become the new template. So I think there is enough good stuff in this Steve to be a choice at 4 million. And again, free up a bit more cash for you to spend elsewhere and maybe those better options. One of those improvements that I've gone for is going to be Murillo. So I do think having a piece of the Forest defence is pretty important. Yes, we might see a decline in Forest, but until we actually see it in the Premier League, I think it's quite risky going without them. So what I've done is I've upgraded Ole Einar to Murillo, and I think that is worth the 0.5 million more. As we've spoken about with defensive contributions, 2 additional points if you hit 10 defensive contributions. This guy's a monster when it comes to that. Averaged above 10 last season. So I think the actual returns are going to be a lot more predictable with Murillo. And importantly, a bit of a bonus point magnet as well. Got 18 last year, which was, I believe, the highest of all defenders. And with good opening fixtures, I just think each and every week he might slowly creep away from that of Einar and maybe even Milenkovic if he doesn't score those headers from corners. So I think he actually will justify the 0.5 million more. And if you do have a team, 0.5 million in the bank, you don't really know what to do with it, I would look at those slight tweaks where you're getting the player that has that higher possibility of hitting the defensive contributions. The other change I've made with the extra 0.5 that, of course, we freed up from Esteve is going to be Bruno Fernandes. Now, again, I think the closer we get to game week 1, managers might look at Bruno Fernandes and actually land on him as a bit more of a safer pick. And with the opening fixtures, Arsenal, of course, then Fulham away and then Burnley at home, I'll say it's a really mixed 3, but when we have someone like Florian Wirtz in place of him, of course, the opening fixture at home against Bournemouth is decent, but then, of course, they've got Newcastle away and Arsenal at home, and in those opening 3, I would beg the question that Bruno Fernandes and Man United probably have equally good fixtures, if not slightly better, just because of that inclusion in that Burnley fixture in game week 3, and also opens up the possibility of a captain in game week 3. So I get it. A lot of people are jumping on the Florian Wirtz train. I might be one of those managers as well. Of course, the ownership is quite scary to take on. But what I like about Bruno Fernandes is guaranteed minutes, penalty taker, which in itself is worth 0.5 million more. We know Man United get these penalties, and the inclusion of Mbeumo and Cunha, I believe, is just going to increase the possibility of that happening. I also think with Bruno Fernandes, defensive contributions for midfielders, once again, he ranked quite highly last season. So he also has the possibility in those tough games, like an Arsenal game, for example, maybe racking up those 2 additional points. So I think Bruno Fernandes will become a popular pick, and I actually think he's a nice pick at 9 million, one that could probably sit in your team for the long term if you want to, but also you can easily downgrade to Florian Wirtz if by game week 4 you say to yourself, oh my god, I need this guy, he is absolutely essential. It's much easier to go from Bruno Fernandes to Wirtz than that of Wirtz to Bruno Fernandes. So we're going to now keep this team like this. I think this is a nice team. It has a good mix of a few quote-unquote differentials. We've got Anderson at a lowly price, ownership. We got Diouf at 2% right now. Murillo is significantly more of a differential than that of Ole Einar. And we've also got Bruno Fernandes taking on someone like a Florian Wirtz. Outside of that, Palmer, Salah, I don't really know if I want to roll the dice with those sorts of players. I think there will be managers out there that want to, but I think rightly so they are at their ownerships that can actually be justified. João Pedro is another talking point, but I'm going to deep dive into that in another video because we have some big question marks about whether he is worth the money or not. So that's how we're looking, and I think that is a really nice blend of differentials and safe picks. Yes, guys, okay, that's going to wrap up today's video, breaking the FPL template, and hopefully with those small tweaks that I've made, you can see how you can still get great picks, but at a slightly less ownership, and that could actually propel you into world #1 by game week 1. We'll see on that one. As always, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure you do drop a like, always massively appreciated. And if you're new around here, make sure you do hit that subscribe button. If you have any questions or anything like that, drop it in the comment section. I'll be sure to get to them. And of course, I will be dropping a video tomorrow in preparation for this deadline. Have an amazing day, take care, and I'll see you real soon. Cheers.